Let's get one thing straight. No one, or at least I hope no one, is saying that Bitcoin is a great place to put your emergency fund or to use to save for a down payment for a house later this year. Bitcoin is not currently a store of value. It is an emerging store of value. Too often, I think that we forget that Bitcoin is still in its teenage years, and if it's going to become an actual store of value, it's going to take some time. There is a classic trilemma in macroeconomic policy called the impossible trinity. According to it, a monetary system can only ever satisfy 2 out of the 3 objectives. As Yassine from ARK Invest points out, Bitcoin's deliberate positioning on this trinity causes the asset to have natural volatility because its price is a function of its demand relative to its supply. But we can clearly see as more individuals and institutions adopt Bitcoin, its volatility decreases over time as a consequence of its network effects. First of all, it actually can in a lot of cases, but is it practical to do so on a daily basis? Well, the answer to that is no, and it's not supposed to be. Bitcoin by design is not supposed to have the same transaction throughput as something like Visa, and that's because Bitcoin chose the path of decentralization and immutability, meaning that it cannot be changed once a transaction is complete. So let me repeat this again. Bitcoin was deliberately made this way by design. The way to think about this is Bitcoin's strengths are suited for a settlement layer, not a transaction layer. Visa is a transaction layer. It's designed for fast, reversible transactions. But Visa transactions batch together and then settle on a completely different layer of the financial system, a settlement layer, where security is much more important. This is where Bitcoin would shine. As Jack Dorsey said, Bitcoin incentivizes clean energy. Why? Well, one of the more interesting things that's been observed about Bitcoin mining is that miners have set up shop in areas where there is stranded energy that would otherwise go to waste, because it is extremely cost effective for them to use this energy that would otherwise go to waste. As Nick Carter says, my favorite way to think about it is as follows. Imagine a topographic map of the world, but with local electricity costs as the variable determining the peaks and troughs. Adding Bitcoin to the mix is like pouring a glass of water over the 3D map. It settles in the troughs, smoothing them out. Additionally, many new mining operations in North America have committed to using green energy to power their operations, and this will only continue to progress as mining continues to diversify out of China and the cost of renewable energy continues to decline. Sorry, but I have to just shake my head at this one. I mean, really? Come on, really? The former director of the CIA, yes, the CIA, just co-authored a report arguing that Bitcoin is not any more used for illicit activity than any other means of payment. According to the United Nations, for every dollar spent in Bitcoin on the darknet, at least 800 was laundered in cash. I'm sorry, which was it that was used for illegal activity again? $800 to $1? Like, come on, this critique is just, it's lazy. It's widely reported that Bitcoin's illicit activity is less than 1%. Compare that to cash, which is estimated to be in the range of 2 to 5%. And on top of that, Bitcoin is pseudonymous. It's not anonymous. It's actually quite trackable. Not very good for illegal activity. Cash, on the other hand... Hey pal, you ever ask yourself what this was backed by? That's right, nothing. But that doesn't mean it doesn't have any value. Let's not get this confused. The dollar has value technically because of government decree, but more so it has value because we collectively believe it has value. Last time I checked, so at the time of this recording, market participants collectively agree that Bitcoin is worth approximately 40,000 USD. And it turns out there is something backing this almost $1 trillion of collective value, computing power through proof of work, and the consensus network effects of millions of market participants. Gold has value in part because it takes a tremendous amount of work to produce it from the earth. Bitcoin takes this value even further by encoding an even harder form of money within a protocol that is completely decentralized, weightless, travels at the speed of light, forever immutable. The dollar was chosen for us. Bitcoin is chosen by us. Actually, you can, thanks to today's sponsor, Ledin. Before I go on to tackle some more juicy misconceptions, I want to give you guys an update on what I've been doing with my Bitcoin. So if you don't know, there's actually a huge lending market for Bitcoin, and I was listening to the Pop podcast the other day, and Kevin O'Leary was talking about how he just started getting into this. The problem is, this lending market can be very hard to access if you're not an institution. So for us normal folk, that's where a company like Ledin comes in. Ledin allows you to park your Bitcoin with them, where you can currently earn 6.1% per year on your coins. So I've taken some of my Bitcoin and I've started doing this with Ledin. And if you're interested in trying it out for yourself, you can check it out in the description linked down below. If you're a curious person like me and you want to understand how Ledin actually works, I would recommend listening to this podcast where the founders of Ledin explained it all. I'll leave a link for that in the description down below as well. I personally don't think it's wise to write off any possibility as impossible, but in my opinion anyway, I think that this one is pretty implausible. When you're new to the crypto space, it's easy to come in and say, well, why can't a new coin get created that's better than Bitcoin? And it makes sense to think that way because generally that's how technology works. But in this case, the problem is you'd first have to compete with the network effects of Bitcoin, which are so strong at this point that if you haven't already started competing, you've probably already lost the race. Second, what people don't immediately get about Bitcoin, which is understandable, is that Bitcoin was deliberately designed to accept certain trade-offs. Pretty much any criticism that you could throw at Bitcoin or that has been thrown at Bitcoin was known at the time of its conception. All the various cryptocurrencies have a specific purpose for which they were designed. Bitcoin was devised to be the hardest form of money, and no other coin is a serious competitor on this because, quite frankly, they can't be. Now this, of course, is going to be extremely interesting to watch. In my opinion, I think the genie's already kind of out of the bottle. You have almost 1 trillion in market capitalization, several publicly traded companies own it, private companies and investment firms own it, large high-profile investors like Stanley Druckenmiller, Paul Tudor Jones, Cathie Woods, and now Ray Dalio own it, public representatives own it, Fidelity and others have institutional-grade custodial services, and federally regulated US banks can now officially custody it for their clients. It's a long list. It's gonna be pretty hard to hit the old Control-Z on that. And on top of that, game theory suggests that if one country were to ban it, it will be in the other country's interests to adopt it. Ah yes, the good old greater fool theory. Bitcoin may look like a bubble because we're used to valuing assets based off of, say, their future expected cash flows discounted to today. And of course, Bitcoin does not have any cash flows. But Bitcoin is not that type of asset. Bitcoin is a monetary asset. And what a lot of people don't know is that for much of our history, different types of money were actually competing to be the most widely used form of money. And as these different forms of money competed against each other, their values would fluctuate wildly. Gold, being the former hardest form of money, was the classical winner of this competition before the fiat monetary system which we live under today. And gold still holds all of its value. Bitcoin is a new competitor in this competition, and the price chart simply just tells the story of how quickly it's trying to rise to be the champion. Not going to beat a dead horse here. As I've already said, Bitcoin was deliberately designed to accept certain trade-offs, and in this case, it is best suited for a settlement layer, and then other more scalable layers will be built on top of it in the same way that Visa is a transaction layer built on top of a settlement layer in our financial system. So this is a bit backwards. Bitcoin is pretty much scam-proof due to its decentralized nature. But if we're talking about private companies or different coin projects within the cryptocurrency space, that's a bit of a different story. A few bad actors in the crypto space have definitely been put on display, as they should be. It's super important to be informed when you're making any decisions with your money. There are scams in the crypto world for sure. Just check the comments. But who would you blame if you saw someone run a red light? The road or the driver? Well, 10 minutes might have been a little bit ambitious. Even though this might have been a little bit longer than you had expected, I still hope that you found it helpful. And if you did, please do all the things, comment, like, subscribe, all that YouTube stuff, and I will see you again soon.